Okay.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Renew Your Spirit, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm your host, Lynn Gaffin, and we have another interesting speaker today. We have Shannon Hall Walker. Shannon, it's lovely
Morning.
to see you. Thank you for being here.
Same. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
This is exciting. I love it. I love it when new people come in and they have new ideas and that, because I like to learn continually. So
Me too.
on your interview, you're right. I interview you, right? Um, your bio that you sent me.
hmm
You are a trustee on the board of the CSSA, the Connecticut State Spiritual Association.
Yes.
You're a student minister. You're practicing. You're working through Morris Pratt. You're taking all the courses to become ordained.
Yes. I have one more lesson and I'll be down to single digits.
Good for you. 5 years to get through it, so I don't care about it.
Oh, I've been on it a long time. So
Good for you. You are a psychic medium, a Reiki master teacher, shamanic practitioner, and the student of the Foundation for Shamanic Studies.
hmm
Okay, I want to take this apart. What is the difference between a medium and a psychic medium?
I think that I just tie the two together. You know, we both know that a psychic may not be able to do mediumistic work, but medium is always a psychic. So I just have tied it back together.
And I think a lot of people identify more with the psychic than they do with mediumship, so it kind of brings them all in together.
Well, because a lot of people say to me, what is a medium?
Yeah.
What is a medium? And you have to explain it. But if you use the word psychic, they're kind of going in the right direction.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of getting the idea.
Good.
So
how long have you been a Reiki how long have you been into Reiki and been a master?
I've been into Reiki since probably around 2011. I took it pretty slow, maybe 2012. I took it pretty slow because I wanted to be accustomed to each level very well before I would move on to the next. Some people do 2 levels at once, or they do, you know, several levels at a time. But I felt like I wanted to be completely comfortable before I moved on to the next, because, you know, there are symbols and there are certain things that you're given to work with as you go through each phase. So I became a Reiki master sometime in 2014. So it took me a couple of years to get there.
Yeah, well, that's what I've heard from other people that have gone into it too. They it takes them a while. It's not something that you can just do over a weekend.
Well, some people do, but I don't think that you're being really fair to your attunements or to the work and to your progress, because Rome wasn't built in a day after all.
Yeah.
You know, we have to practice and work with our different levels and guides to get to where we're ready to move on to the next step. And I just let my guides tell me when it was time.
Yeah. Speaking of guides, how did you get into spiritualism, working with spirit, and how long have you been doing this?
I've been at it for about 10 years now. I think that I've always had a sensitivity, clearly, but I never really was aware of my gifts until I was in my mid 40s. One day, it's really interesting. One day I was dealing with computer problems at my job. And back then, you know, you'd have to sit on hold while they ran all kinds of diagnostics on your computer, and you couldn't do anything. I mean, I literally had nothing that I could do, because everything in my travel agency, I practically needed the computer for, even for accounting.
Yeah.
So I was sitting there just kind of writing and doodling. And the next thing I knew, my hand was being taken over.
Oh.
And I started out with automatic writing. And at first I was making these perfect little circles. When I say perfect, most people would need a compass. I could never draw a circle like that.
Oh my goodness.
And then it was a lot of like, the spirograph writings,
Yeah.
when that the kid's toy where you have a circle and you can make all kinds of different patterns. And then I was doing that. And then I was going so fast. And I remember my friend Janice, who I used to work with, came into my office and took a movie of it, because it was just, the hand was just going and scribbling and moving. And what I found out later is they were clearing me. They were getting the channel cleared to do the automatic writing. Eventually I asked, what do you want? What is this? What's going on? And that was the first time that I wrote. And the message was, go to the mountain of God and stand beside Jesus. That was a big,
clear.
that was a big message. So I started out working with my grandmother, who was my first guide. And she kind of, we practiced and we practiced and we worked together. And she got me through a lot of different hurdles until I was ready to graduate and to work with the main guide that I work with now. And, I started taking classes and working with Berlene. She did a lot of psychometry in her circles. And so that really helped me to take it from the pen to being able to do it without having to use,
Wow.
to do this.
Yeah.
When I want really to have accurate readings, I'll sit with the paper and pen, and I'll do both, because
I've seen mediums do that. While they're giving the reading, they're doing on the pad. Oh my goodness.
It's kind of like, the way I describe it is, the pen is kind of like the needle on a record player, and the paper is kind of like the record, and spirit takes control of your hands and it processes the information and it brings it into my head, and my mouth is like the speaker. That's kind of the best way that I can describe it.
Wow.
It's really an interesting phenomena.
It really is.
It is.
Gee.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Now,
So
is this something you can teach?
I don't know. I've thought about whether or not I would want to try to come up with a curriculum to teach it. There's so much trust involved. When it first started, I didn't know enough to be worried about trust. And thank goodness I had good controls and gatekeepers to from the get-go. And of course I had my grandmother there who was working with me and helping me. But it's kind of hard to explain. Yep, you're going to have to trust, and you're going to have to let your mind and your hand be possessed. And I don't know how you start with teaching that. Maybe developing intuition first. I'm not sure.
Is that like a Ouija board, trusting in the planchette as it goes around?
Well, to a certain extent, maybe. Yeah. I think a Ouija board is probably not as
right.
Yeah, it's not as comfortable as doing the automatic writing.
But I think, do you think that with any kind of mediumship, there's trust? There has to be trust.
100%, yes, for sure.
Yeah, and you have to know and be aware of the ones that are coming through to you. And otherwise, I don't see how you could do it if you didn't trust who was coming through.
You have to trust, and you have to do it with ethics, and you have to try to live by the principles, because in mediumship, you can have any spirit that's going to work with you.
Yeah.
It's the kind of spirits that you want to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
The way that you live your life and the way that you think makes you magnetic to the higher powers. And I think that at a point where you start to mature and develop, you realize, I don't have to worry so much about protection as long as my mind is right.
Right. Oh, yeah.
As long as my actions are right, then I don't have to worry so much about it, because my gatekeepers know what I want. And I try as hard as it is to live by those principles every day. So I think that makes you magnetic to the kind of company that you want to keep.
Yeah, you draw to you, which it's like attracts like. You're bringing in the positive You put out
Right.
the positive, you're going to bring in the positive. And yeah,
Mhm.
that sounds
Yeah.
really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
it's a little kind of a cool story. It's just my little
Yeah.
story, but
Yeah.
pretty interesting the way that it all started.
Did you ever get your computer fixed?
Yeah, the computer got fixed. It had a bad virus. But you know what's really funny is that during that process, while I was trying to get the computer working, I had music. Do you remember back in the old days they had the real player that you
Yeah.
could
Oh,
download
yeah.
on the computer? And I had so many purchased songs on the real player. And I was worried that if I had a bad virus or something
You
was
could get them
terribly
all.
wrong, I've lost all of that because
Yeah.
it wasn't like you could keep it in a cloud back then.
Yeah.
So I was trying while I was on hold to figure out how to make discs with this real player and what to do. And I was sitting there and all of a sudden my hand started moving. And it said, it wrote contact real player customer service and it wrote the phone number.
Oh, for crying out loud.
It was the craziest thing because it was the real phone number. So
Talk about being specific. Holy cow.
it's rarely that specific.
Yeah.
You know, even though I'm much more seasoned now than I was when I was first starting out, it is so much more, it was very much more specific then, I think, than it even gets today. The other funny thing that happened is that as I was working more and I was just putting my hand to the paper to see what would happen, the spirit wrote a phone number. And I thought that phone number is so familiar. So, you could Google phone numbers and see where they belong. And it was the phone number of someone who I really thought of as a mentor who had passed away several years before. And he was coming to me to just let me know that he was there. I know it was crazy. I Googled it and I said, "Oh my God, that there was his name." And I thought, this is outrageous. This is so amazing,
Good grief. Oh my gosh. That is specific. That is specific.
That
Yeah.
was very specific. Yeah, it doesn't get that specific all the
No.
time.
Oh my gosh.
Those were some pretty sensational things to start out with. So you can imagine the disappointment when it wasn't like that all the time.
Yeah. Geez. It's like you get spoiled. I want this all the time. Oh,
Uh-huh.
wow.
I
Okay.
know. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Now, shamanic practitioner, tell me about that.
So when I completed Reiki Master, I started itching. What am I going to do now? Because I always feel like I want to be learning or studying something. And as much as I love the mediumship, more than I can even explain, the healing is really my big thing. And so I went to visit a friend, and she has all kinds of training and healing. And we were talking, and I told her, I think I want to go maybe in the spring to New York and study with William Rand for Karuna, for Reiki Karuna, which is the next step. And she said, well, why do you want to do that? He's so strict and he's so rigid, and you're not a rigid healer. So why would you want to go, A, study with him? And B, why would you want to go to Karuna, which is even more rigid than what you're doing? And I started naming off the reasons that I wanted to, the things that were going to be taught in this particular workshop. And she said, Shannon, you're talking about shamanism. You're not talking about Reiki anymore.
Oh.
Things like soul retrieval, for example. So she said, before you sign up and spend, I think it was like $800, and then you have to be gone for 5 days in a hotel, and it's like 6 hours away from home, which would have been fine. But I started researching shamanism, and I found the website of the Foundation for Shamanic Studies.
Right.
And on it, they have numerous articles about shamanism, about the work that they're doing, about the experiences that the instructors, for example, have had. And I started saying, yeah, this is really up my alley. It was a big surprise. because I didn't really know very much about shamanism at all. So then this was, I believe, in February. Yes, it was in February. And I started looking at their classes, and I started getting excited about the classes. And so before you can take any of the advanced classes, you have to go to the 2-day basic workshop. So I was looking in the East where they had them, and sure enough, there was one in April in Wakefield, Rhode Island, which is where I grew up.
Oh,
And I'm actually here right now. I waved at you as I drove by the Mystic exit this morning. She's in Snug Harbor, but I thought, wow, this is great. I can visit my parents for a couple of days, and I can take this course. So this will be cool. So then I looked at the pricing, and I was like, okay, this will work. And if I had signed up within 2 days, I would get a discount for early registration. And I said, what else, Spirit, do you need to tell me? And I went to my first 2-day workshop, and they're long and intensive. You start at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and you're not done till about 5:30 on Saturday and Sunday. It's very, very intensive, and it was fascinating. And the first day I said, I'm not going back, because it was so intense.
Too much, yeah.
It felt like it was so hard, but I went back the next day, and I had the most amazing teacher in the world, Nan Moss. She is, I just don't even have enough words to say about her. And she helped to tie it all together. And I've been hooked ever since.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Now, how long ago was that?
That was in early 2015. Nope, it was 2014.
Okay.
It was early 2014 that I found this, because Valentine's Day was the deadline to register. So I had found it a couple of days before Valentine's Day, and later in the season, I took the course. So.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, cool. What is there about shamanism that keeps you so interested?
Well, I think that it's like anything that you need. There are all these compassionate helping spirits to help put things together for you. You know, I mean, you can go down to lower world, for example, and work with one of the compassionate helping spirits to find answers for yourself or for other people. And they're always right on target. And it doesn't take you years or weeks to get the answer. They're pretty quick and prompt.
Okay.
And sometimes you might want to argue about the answer a little bit with them, and they will have a back and forth discussion. And sometimes when they've explained it to the way that they feel is proper, they'll just walk away when they're done. So they're like, there's no more need to talk anymore. This is your answer. This is what you wanted. There's great healing in the shamanic world. If I could tell you some of the stories about the healing.
Really?
Oh my God, yes. It's phenomenal. It's indescribable, almost, the things that I have experienced as a healer, working with the Reiki and spiritual healing and shamanic healing all at once. Oh, it's crazy, outrageous. One time I was working on this man who's a doctor, right? I was doing a distance healing on his knee, and this is when I was working with Reiki and just with whatever spiritual modality came to me, because eventually it all just develops into something that you don't have a name for, right? Okay. You start with something, and the spirits work with you, and it just evolves. So I heard the call to go to the upper world, which is where we usually do our healing. And I found him on the table, and they were doing psychic surgery on his knee. And I heard the name Dr. Bird, right? And I heard the word mentor, and I got to help and be involved in this, doing energy work while they were doing the actual psychic surgery. And I came back and I talked to this guy afterwards, and I said, do you remember from your younger days as a doctor someone called Dr. Bird. And he said, Dr. Bird's before your time. You wouldn't know Dr. Bird. How do you know that name? And I said, well, there's this thing I talk to dead people. So he's not off limits to me being able to talk to him. And I guess that he said, well, I don't know about mentor, but he was somebody whose style that I liked. He was somebody who I sort of hoped that I would develop into as I matured into a doctor. And I said, well, that kind of sounds like a mentor to me. And he started laughing and he said, yes. But within days, he was able to do things with his knee that he hadn't been able to do for months.
Oh my gosh.
From that surgery that took place.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
It's outrageous. There was this one time when I was volunteering a lot at a friend of mine's practice. She's a chiropractor. And there was at that time, I wasn't taking appointments or anything. I was just, whoever she thought I should work on, I'd work on. So, she needed somebody who was really tight to get loosened up before she did did her work. Then I'd go in and loosen them up. Or if somebody had a treatment and they needed a little bit of help afterwards, I would go and just kind of try to soften things up and put them back together. So there was this lady on this one day who had been in an accident. She had a boot on her foot for I don't know how many years. She had this pain that she couldn't even describe. She'd been coming to this doctor who had been helping her, but she still kept having the pain, and she was emotionally really just spent from it. So the doctor said, why don't you take a look at her and see if there's anything you can help her with energetically. Mm-hmm. So I was glad I had my little Tektite that day, which is it's a stone that helps to ward off negative or bad energy or attachments and things like that. So I got that out because it sounded almost like it could be an attachment. And I started working on her, and I started like pulling stuff out of her. And as I would use the Tektite and as I would work to help move the pain, it moved out of her leg, and then it moved to different parts of her body. Yeah. And I said, okay, the spirit, I can't even tell you about spirit, because the 2 weekends before that, I had gone to an extraction workshop. I had learned how to extract. Yeah. So I started going about the business of extraction, but it kept moving. It was really clever. The next thing I knew, I saw one of the healers that I get to work with. Her name is Ruth, and she's an Amazonian healer. Mm-hmm. And she was dressed in the garb, the dress with the fringe at the bottom and the beaded necklace with the teeth, and she had on a sort of a headdress. And I saw her straddling this woman and just pulling and grabbing and taking stuff out of her. So I sort of committed to the process of working both ways. And the next thing I knew, I found myself straddling this woman on the table. And I was out of my element at that point. I was completely, I don't even remember what I did so much while I was up there. I just remember getting up there and finding myself up there. And we worked and we worked and we worked together to get rid of this attachment that was so stubborn. And we were able to extract it. And it was great, of course. But what I didn't know what to do with is the woman, after the pain was gone, broke down. She just started having a breakdown. Yeah, I can understand. Because she said that it was like giving birth. Yeah. The pain mounted up like contractions do when you're having a baby, and it got so strong and so intense, and then it was gone. And the release made her break down a little bit. So it's a good thing that I knew from my spiritual healing practice how to to give her energy healing to help her to bring it together. I put her in a chair and I stood behind the chair and I led her into a guided meditation to help to center her and to ground her, and she hasn't had the pain again since that I'm aware of.
That's
I mean,
fantastic.
you can't make this stuff up, Lynn.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That's
crazy amazing.
Now, do you still take patients or clients or whatever you call them?
Yeah, yeah. I'm not volunteering anymore, but I am obviously doing distance healings for people now.
Mhm. Now, what about in your home or wherever? Well, I know you have your travel agency,
Yeah.
but do you see clients personally?
In the travel agency?
No, well, like
Oh.
with your Reiki and shamanism, and that, do you see, or is it just all distant healing?
I'm doing distance now.
Okay.
Because I just don't feel like I want to be subjecting people to whatever I could be carrying or subject myself.
Oh, I keep forgetting
know,
we got that COVID. Yeah, that COVID.
We've got
thing,
that
yeah.
mess. We've got
Yeah.
that mess going on.
Yeah.
So, and I have, my husband's 80 years old, so I have to be careful about what I might bring home to him. So when you're doing this work, sometimes it's very close person to person. And I gotta say, I miss it. I miss the personal one-on-one.
Mhm.
But
Now, when you're doing the distant healing, do you get reports back
if
from?
I'm lucky,
Oh
yeah,
my, really?
I ask them to follow up with me. I
Yeah.
did my first healing recently for someone with COVID. And when I checked in with him the next day, he said the fever was gone. So we did a follow-up healing yesterday. We'll see if anything came from that. But you know, it's nice to get results to know what things are effective, you know, what
Yeah.
things you
Oh,
can be effective,
of course, you need validation. Absolutely, you need to find out.
or at least the feedback, so that you
Yeah.
can say, well, maybe I should have done something a little differently, or maybe I can talk to spirit about
Yeah.
you know, how the things could have, my part would have been that could have made things a little bit better.
Now, if somebody wanted a distant healing, if they wanted to contact you, what do you charge?
Well, right now I'm not charging per se. For the longest time, I didn't charge anything. I just did it, and spirit kept getting on me for years.
Mhm.
You need to start charging. You need
Yeah.
to well, first they said you're ready to start charging, so think about charging. And then they said, did you remember we asked you to start charging? It's time for you to start charging. And then they got a little more aggressive, and finally they said, look, if you don't want to set a price, which I didn't want to do, because I think people there are people out there who can't afford it.
Right.
And because I don't think money should come between healing,
Right.
you know, come in between healing all the time. And that was what I kept telling them. I just, you know, I know what people charge that do what I do. And I know that some of the people that I've worked with would never be able to pay that.
Right.
So I've decided to start taking donations because, you know, in any kind of work, if the give and take aren't there, then it's out of balance. And
You have to. You have to.
yeah, you have to.
I was working I did hypnotherapy and EFT, the tapping, and I worked on a sliding scale. You know, I set my price, but I also let people know that if they couldn't afford it, you know, whatever you could afford, because like you say, there has to be a give and take.
Mm-hmm.
And people, if it's for nothing, then people don't get anything out of it. You know, there has to be, you know, something there. They have to be invested in some way.
Yeah, that's another good way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm very interested in the hypnotherapy. I think that's the direction I want to start looking into going next.
Yeah, I started, I did that for a while, and then I found the EFT and then I just dropped everything and went wholeheartedly into that. That's one thing I just loved that.
Now, do you teach that?
I did. Yeah. Yeah, I did. When I first started with it, I was the only one in the area doing it. So I would give workshops. And I have people
Huh.
come from all over, you know, the state and this part of the country come to my workshops. And yeah, and then you know, gradually it became more and more people. You know, different counselors did their own therapy and that, so their own EFT and that. And I just did it mostly at home with private clients.
Nice.
And that. But yeah, but I loved it. I loved it. Had fantastic results with it.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, that's what I love about shamanism is seeing the results,
Yeah,
or about Reiki or any of the energy work. You know, with the mediumship, you don't know 100% if you're getting results. People might say yes, they understand.
hmm
And sometimes you get tears, and sometimes you get people that come and give you feedback. But with the healing, you get to see almost immediately what your effort has done.
yeah,
It's
yeah. I can understand that. Yeah, I know. I've had recently. I've had several people do readings and or seen people do readings and that. And they just do the readings. They don't ask for any validation, or they don't even know if they're contacting the person, you know, if the person they're talking to understands or anything in that.
mhm,
And I think you need that validation.
agreed.
I,
Agreed.
I yeah. So it's
Agreed. I've seen a lot of really amazing mediums just go
yeah,
spitfire, bang,
yeah,
bang,
yeah,
bang, bang, and then they're done. And I know that I've had readings where I didn't understand any of it.
right.
At least if you're giving a reading and you say, do you understand?
Yeah,
You don't have to ask leading questions. You can just say, do you understand? Or does this make sense to you? Then you have the opportunity to go back to spirit and say, I need more,
yeah,
if they don't get it. But
yeah. The first mediums day I went to, or that I took part in, was at the Norwich Church. They informed me that I was going to be a medium there that day, and I thought, oh, okay.
baptism by fire, as Jackie said.
Yes, yes, definitely. Because it was right when I was first starting out, and so I said, okay. So I was sitting with a man, and I was reading for him, and that he's sitting there going, "Yep, I said, "You know what I'm talking about?" He said, "I haven't known what you've been talking about since you started." And I said, okay, this was 10 minutes into a 20-minute reading.
Oh, and you don't have much time to correct it at that
So I
point.
had to go back to the very beginning and work on it until he got to the point where he knew what I was talking about. But oh my gosh, you know, all he had to do was say, "No, I don't know what you're talking. What you know, I don't understand from the beginning." But he said, oh my gosh.
Well, I was actually, you know, told by a medium that I really respect, that I ask too many questions.
Mm,
I do message work, and
mm,
you know, I took it a little bit to heart, and then I realized, you know,
mm, mm,
I have to ask, and I have to make sure
Yep.
that I'm going in the right direction,
Yep.
because that message I'm giving to you could be for that person sitting over there.
Right.
And if that person doesn't understand what I'm saying, what good is it? So if I can come back to spirit and come back to spirit, spirit will make it clear if you ask them to.
Yep. Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. You know, yeah. As far as I'm concerned, and I teach this to my students too, because I teach the class, you have to stop, and because sometimes they just plow right through with their readings like that. You have to stop every once in a while and find out if the person you're reading for is in the same ballpark that you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because if not, you've got to go back to the beginning and find out why and who you're reading for. You know, and like you say, spirit will tell you.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
can't assume. You can't assume.
No, you can't. You know, I do a no on mediums days, and that I'm telling the whole world about. You know, they're paying a lot of money for 20 minutes of your life.
Yeah.
So I just say at the beginning, I'll tell them first, I'm not supposed to ask you this. I'm going to ask you anyway. If you have someone you want to make a special invitation to, since we only have 20 minutes, I don't need to know the relationship.
Right.
I don't need to know what you want to know, but I can just write their name on the top of the paper. That way, if, I really want to hear from grandma, but Auntie Gladys is a big mouth and she's going to stomp over her, then Auntie Gladys knows I want to hear from grandma, and sometimes they say yes, and I write down the names, and then I start giving valid, evidence, and they'll show me which name it is, and then I'll know what the relationship is. But at least we can maximize that 20 minutes for them.
Yeah. I see why. What would be wrong with with that? To me, it makes perfect sense.
Well, a lot of things you read say the medium should already know the name, which is ridiculous. And that you shouldn't have to give a name, that the spirits are going to be coming with you if they know that you're coming for a reading, or that you're fishing for information, because you don't want to have anything look like fraud. You don't want it to look like you're committing, like you're being fraudulent, or that you're using psychometry or your psychic abilities to hone in on those names and then come up with it. I just want to make sure that whoever this person wants to come through, that I'm doing everything I can to try to make it happen. We can't guarantee it, but we can.
There's nothing wrong with giving a name. You're not telling, I want to hear from my Uncle Joe, who was an engineer and a fireman, and he was 5'10" with red hair. You're
Right.
getting a name, for crying out loud.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not asking for the relationship or anything, but I find that it helps. I find it helps a lot with making somebody satisfied when they come for the reading, because you do have 20 minutes and you can pack a lot into the 20 minutes, or you can spend 15 minutes fishing to try to make sure that you're bringing the right person.
Yeah.
And even when you write the name down, you still could be getting 3 spirits at once.
Yeah.
And you can still be confusing your sitter, but at least this way, maybe you can narrow down to 3 people and you can try to break them apart.
Yes. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I usually just ask at the end. I say, now, did you have any questions? And then they can go with it. I want to hear from so-and-so and this and that. It's the same thing. Whether you do it at the beginning or at the end, did you get a name or you don't? No, there's nothing wrong with that. You tell who's ever talking to you.
It's just,
tell them it's okay.
Yeah, it's just, if you read about what to do and what not to do when you go see a medium, one of the things they say not is giving a name, but that's if you're going for an hour, that's fine. If you've got 20 minutes, you want to be happy. You want to feel like you've gotten something out of that donation that you made.
And even if you're going for 5 hours, I really don't see anything wrong with giving a name, for crying out loud. Because
but we have to be able to, I guess we have to be able to prove it without beyond a shadow of a doubt that we're using our mediumship and we're not using other methods in order to give this reading, because spiritualism is so prone to fraud.
Well, it's not like they're giving you the name and you're saying, okay, just a minute, I'll look it up on the internet.
No, exactly. Exactly.
No. I think some of these people that write the rules about what should or shouldn't be done have never given a message, don't know the first thing about it. I think
could be. Yep, could be.
Yeah.
It's just a little aid that helps.
Of course.
I don't focus on the names. I just focus on what comes through, but it's just an invitation, and I like doing that. And if I get kicked out of a medium's day for doing it, then so be it. But I don't think we don't have enough people, so we're not going to get kicked out.
We can't even have a medium's day right now. I know some of the churches are doing it, but yeah. So how, going back to getting into spiritualism, how did you find spiritualism? How did you find the church and get into it?
Well, the first message that I got was go to the mountain of God and stand beside Jesus. And I kept hearing from my grandmother and my great aunt to start really reading the Bible. get to know the Bible, and that I needed to find a group to worship with. And I have a Catholic background, which I love.
Mhm.
I think that it's a beautiful religion, but I couldn't buy into a lot of it. So I decided to, to branch out and start churching around. And I tried a lot of different types of churches, a lot of different types of faiths. And I kept coming back to a spiritualist church. I kept coming back to a spiritualist church. I honestly think sometimes I still do miss the sacraments and in the candles and the feeling that you have when you go into a different kind of church than spiritualism. But spiritualism gets me, it's kind of like my tribe, my group.
Yeah.
I get spiritualism, and spiritualism gets me. And do I agree with everything in the religion? Maybe not, but it
You
fits
don't
me.
have to.
No, and I don't think anybody's going to find a religion that they 100%
Mm-mm.
are correct in. But I think that this religion has fit my molds better.
Yeah.
And there's so much to it. It doesn't. It's not a religion where somebody tells you what to think. They give you information and you can formulate your own ideas. And I like the idea. I don't love the idea, but I like the idea of personal responsibility.
Yeah, it would be much easier if we could just say, no, it was his fault.
Right. Or,
Yeah.
let Jesus take the fall for you.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to give up Jesus. Jesus is still, to me, he's a savior.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's always been there for me when I've been at the worst places in my life, when I've had no confidence, and when I thought nobody cared about me, and when I hardly cared about myself. Jesus was always there to heal me and to love me. So in that respect, yeah, he is still a savior, but I can't blame him or make him take the fall for things that I have done.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of fit the puzzle together for me, because I didn't understand all along, why would he die why would he have to die like this?
Yeah.
For the things that I would end up doing, and as it turns out, that was just his message, the message that he was trying to teach of love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what I like about spiritualism is it's a very personal religion.
Mm-hmm.
The way I do my spiritualism doesn't necessarily have to be the way you do your spiritualism.
Right.
But it all works.
As long as we're all adhering the best that we can to those principles. And I'll tell you, they're not always easy.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Yeah.
But
it's often hard at times to love thy neighbor as thyself.
Oh, dear God. It is, especially when they're poking knives at you and making you bleed. The self-salvation and the ego comes in, and you can go right on a tirade, man. Crazy tirade. But yeah, they're kind of hard sometimes. But the personal responsibility has taught me a lot, because when I do something now that I think better of later, or to have a thought that I could have thought better, or even I mea culpa all the time, because I think about something that I said and then I realize, maybe I could have hurt somebody's feelings the way that I said it. So I'm always making the phone call to say,
Yeah. And they're saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't take it that way.
Either that or thank you.
Yeah.
I was kind of shocked when you said that. Now that I know what you meant by it, I understand. But remembering those principles helps me to clean up my messes before I'm on the other side, because they're a lot harder to clean up when you get there.
Yeah. I know. I always tell new people that when they're coming in and that, I said, just take what you like and leave the rest. Because usually each week we have a different worker, and you may not agree with what this one person says, but so you can't walk out and say, I never want to come back, because next week we'll have somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that you agree with everything they say. So I just tell them, take what you like and leave the rest. You don't have to believe everything that we say. God knows.
No, and I think that's true with any faith, don't you? I remember there was a I used to go to this American Baptist church, and I loved the pastor, and who knows, I might still be going if it weren't for the fact that he transferred and moved. But I didn't, sometimes he made me mad with what he said, really angry.
Yeah.
But I didn't say I'm not coming back, because he was so educational on the way that he taught about God. It was,
Yeah.
he was really smart, and he was a very good teacher, and I loved hearing him speak, and I loved him even though I didn't always like what he said.
But we've had a lot of people that come and don't like what they hear, so they don't come back.
Yes.
But you just kind of have to feel, okay, they're on their path, we're on our path. Maybe they're not, our paths aren't converging, and we're here if you need us.
Yeah, and it's true what you said. Just if you don't like it, wait a minute, because we're going to have another person next week.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and they may be, what they say may resonate better with you than what this last person said.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah, because it's all in perspective, and you don't know where the people are coming from.
Right.
What they're going through at the time. Maybe they're going through something that was really hit when the worker at the time said something, and that it was like it. So you just don't know where they're coming from, and that. So, and also, if they're going to give up that easily, they're not interested.
They might have been there for the messages or for the healing, and then off they go. We get a lot of people who come at the end so that they can get messages.
Yes. Used to
and
do
darn
that.
it, those people always get their darn messages. It's like the room can be full where that not everybody's going to get a message, and those people that come in at the end, Spirit always brings you to them.
I used to deliberately not give them a message.
You did.
Because I figure, out at Pine Grove, there used to be several people that would come in right at the end, and we knew they were coming for the message. It wasn't that their car broke down and they just got there. We knew they were coming for the message. So if I was the worker at the time, I wouldn't give them a message, because I figured you can't come for this service.
Yeah.
You can't eat just the icing. You've got to eat the cake too. Come for the cake.
The whole thing, the whole package. Because you've got to get something out of being here other than just a message.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
it's a free message.
A free message.
Yeah.
Oh, because they probably even came in before the offering, after the offering.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh yes. Oh yes. Right at the end, when we're getting ready for the messages, that's when they walk in. It's like they're waiting outside. And no, so if I was working, I wouldn't give them a message.
That was smart. The people who came and listened and were part of the whole service deserve to get the messages.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's funny, and it's throughout the whole. I think it's throughout the whole circuit that it happens.
It is, and it's too bad.
Yeah.
It's too bad. They're coming for to me, the mediumship is the hook. It brings you in, but you've got to stay for the whole show before you get to the dessert, to the end of it.
Yeah, right.
Because it's not fair. It's not fair to the worker. It's not fair to the other people that were there.
Well, and in this area, we have amazing speakers. We have truly incredible people who have such fantastic insight. And even if you're only half listening to the sermon, you're getting something out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're fully listening, you're getting a lot more, obviously, but even if you're halfway paying attention and just getting through it so you can get to the messages, you're learning something.
Yeah.
You're evolving. So what could be wrong with that?
Yeah. 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 No, I just have my own ideas about that. I know a lot of people don't agree with me. But I didn't care. If I was going to be working there and you came in 5 minutes after, before, we closed, you're not getting the message. And
Yeah,
So
I can understand the inkling to not want to give them a message because they came in just for that. Yeah. Yeah. It's a frustration thing, you know?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
yeah. You feel kind of used and beaten up when
Used,
people do that.
absolutely. Absolutely. You're being used because you're getting a free message,
Yeah.
you know, and that's not fair. That's not fair.
It's an hour and a half of their life, really.
Yeah, yeah. And who knows, you might learn something.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing. And even if you don't go to a healing chair,
Yeah.
to be in meditation with so many healers at the same time is extremely healing. There were lots of times I wouldn't go to a chair because I would be feeling that healing vortex, and I didn't need to sit in that chair. I just needed to have the
Right.
continuity of the mediumship.
The energy that's built up during that time anyway is phenomenal. And sometimes you get more just by sitting and absorbing than going up to the chair because you're breaking concentration as you're getting up and going back. Yeah.
It's true. It's true. And we have some great healers, not taking away from the healers, because it's amazing.
Yeah.
I'll never forget.
I think it's amazing. I think it's an amazing religion to begin with. I really do.
I agree.
I think I have learned so much from it. And, you know, and it's like you want to stop people on the street corner.
Yes.
You know what? You know, yeah.
You do. You really do. You want to stand out on the street and pull them in and say, come on, you'll learn something cool. You'll see something neat happening. Come in here.
They don't want us to do that, though.
No, shucks, they don't. They don't. We want them. I mean, we can't just kind of tie them up and gag them and pull them in. We have to let them come of their own volition. But it is such an amazing.
It is. And I think the people in it are amazing. I've met some of the most amazing people in spiritualism. For one thing, we're all on the same page as far as, you know, trying to learn something in that. And I think spiritualism is a really great equalizer because it just brings everybody together. And it's not something that we have to do. There's nothing in there that says we have to do thus and so.
Right.
It's your life. Do what you want. This is what we found, you know, and we're still learning too.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
I mean, something so simple as cause and effect, natural laws. It's simple, right? But then when you try to live it,
it
ain't so simple. You know, it sounds simple on the onset. But it's not always easy when the ego has its way, or when we have that flight or flight reaction, which are human emotional things. It's hard, very, very hard to live by cause and effect, that by the knowledge of it.
I know. No, I think it's amazing. It really is. So.
It is. It's made me such a much better person.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Much more caring and much more sensitive to other people. It's really, it has changed things for me. I feel more connected to the infinite spirit than I ever did before. And I know they say that happens as you start getting older, that you start connecting more to the God of your understanding. But with this work, it's like, it used to be that I loved God, and I knew I couldn't survive without God, and that I was grateful for what I was blessed with. But now it's like water and air. It's infinite spirit, something that I need to get through my day.
It just becomes who you are. It's like I always say, it's not a religion that you at the end of the service you go out, get in your car and drive home and forget about the whole thing until next Sunday.
Correct.
You take it with you. It becomes part of you. It becomes part of your life, and it just becomes part of who you are. And you know, you just happen to come back next week and recharge your batteries, but it's still, It's amazing. It really is.
Yeah, and
I
that's
think-
what's too bad about the people that come and don't come back, or the ones that come just for the message, because they're missing so much.
Mhm.
They're missing a life changing way of thinking and way of life that's so much for the better.
Yeah. Yeah. But you can't tell them.
No,
It's where they are. It's where they are. You can maybe, everybody says, well, we planted a seed. It's like, oh, I get so tired of that. Well, they may not come back, but we planted a seed. It's like, oh, for Pete's sake, but maybe we did, maybe we didn't, but why didn't they come back? You almost want to go up and ask them, take a poll. Why do you do not come back?
yeah, what was it?
Mhm.
What was it exactly?
Mhm.
Maybe they just came out of curiosity, and when they realized that
Yeah.
it was really we were there really to
Right,
worship,
very well.
that
Yep.
that there was no real show to be had.
I think that's a lot of it. I think that's a lot of it because they're naturally they're newbies. They're people that really haven't had that experience with spiritualism and that. So it's like maybe I'll go to church and find out what it's all about. And maybe it's
Well,
not for them. That's fine. Not we're. I told somebody once that we're not for everybody. We're not.
mm-mm,
And he said, "Oh yes, we are." And I said, "No, we're
mm-mm.
not."
We're all on a different phase of our evolution, you
But
know?
all roads lead to Rome. There's no other way to get to Rome. You can't. It's like all roads lead to God. So no matter which path you're on, you're gonna
It's
get
the
there.
same road. It's
Yeah,
the same road.
yeah,
Exactly. And every doctrine, the golden rule is the
yeah.
golden thread that ties all of us. We're all tied
Oh,
together.
yep.
All of us together. Cause and effect. You might be looking at that cause as quote unquote sin, and the effect as quote unquote punishment for the sin, but it's the same idea.
Mhm.
You do something that's not maybe in the light, and you get something back that's dark.
Right.
That's just
Yeah.
back to life.
Yep. What goes around comes around. It's called karma.
Yeah. And it's
You know.
also called karma. And so it's how you
Yeah.
look at the picture. It might vary, but it's the same picture.
Yeah.
It's the same picture. But with so many, I guess that with so many TV shows, Ghostbusters and Paranormal Witness and all of some of that crazy stuff that's out there, maybe people see the spiritualist church and they think that they're going to get some kind of a show, and instead of it being a real worship
Yeah.
service. So
Yeah.
I wonder that sometimes.
Yeah. That could very well be. Yeah. So, well, listen, this hour went fast. My goodness.
It did.
And you wondered if you would have anything to talk about.
I did. I again, I am following some pretty smart people.
Well, you did a fantastic job. Did a
Well,
beautiful
thank
job
you.
today. Absolutely. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
You make it very easy.
Well, I just like to find out things about people,
Mhm.
So, yeah,
There's nothing wrong with curiosity.
yeah. But thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for being here, and tune in next week. Our worker next week will be Eugenia da Silva from our church. She is from Brazil, and we're going to talk about spirit and spiritism.
Oh, cool. That'll be a nice one.
Mhm.
That'll be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Me
And I'm
too.
looking forward to when I can interview you.
We'll talk.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Shannon. It's
Oh,
nice
you're
talking
welcome.
with you.
Thank you. Have a
Okay.
good weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.